Hello, and welcome to the Movie Mouth Film and TV Podcast. This week, we'll be discussing the latest movie news, film trailers, and new release reviews with batshit crazy Groundhog Day with a bazooka action romp boss level, and performance powerhouse based on a true story new drama, Judas and the Black Messiah. On top of it all, every week we discuss a classic film in our video store corner section, and this week we'll be heading to the balls to the wall near future catastrophe that is Russell Crowe and Denzel Washington in sci-fi flop Virtuosity. This is Miles, still sequestered in sunny Florida, and as ever, I'm joined by a man who famously once said, people looked at him differently, and they knew he was with somebody. At 13, he was making more money than most of the grown-ups in the neighborhood. I mean, he had more money that he could spend. He had it all. One day, the kids from the neighborhood carried his mother's groceries all the way home. You know why? It was out of respect. Ever since he can remember, he's always wanted to be a gangster. It's Phil. Good day.
Good day.
How are you, darling?
I'm all right. How are you?
I feel Liotta better after doing that impression.
Good. It's true, though. They did carry the shopping.
Did they?
Yeah. Made them do it, didn't they?
Not like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone when he's walking down the street with the shopping bags and they all explode.
They split open.
Every time I've ever carried shopping bags home from a supermarket, I've always thought about that scene in Home Alone when Macaulay Culkin's shopping bags just empty on the floor. And I'm always thinking ahead, like, what would I do if that was me right now?
Well, you need a bag for life, don't you? Simple.
You do. Anyway, what have you been watching this week?
This week, so we had a bit of a binge because picked up a series again that I'd completely forgotten that we watched the first one of, which was Deutschland 83. I don't know if you watched this at the time. Because it was a few years ago that the first series came out. And I really enjoyed it at the time. Completely forgot that they'd made a second series, Deutschland 86. And because we saw an advert for Deutschland 89, which is coming out, I was like, wow, got to catch up on that. So we watched all of Deutschland 86 and loved it. Really, really good series. If you're not familiar with it, it's about sort of the East and West German divide, and back in obviously the 80s, and just about a sort of young guy that gets turned into a spy, basically. But it's a really good, clever series, well worth a watch if no one's seen it. But so yeah, been watching that. That was really good. Gonna shock you a bit here. Finally watched The Joker as well. Because I hadn't seen it.
Oh.
Yeah,
Joaquin.
I haven't seen it at all. Yeah, absolutely amazing. I knew it was meant to be very, very good. Obviously, it won a lot of awards and he did really well. But yeah, what a performance. So yeah, that was really good to see that.
Poor old
finally.
Bobby De Niro, eh?
I know. I know. Tell me about it. I was like, oh. So that was good. What else? I've watched a couple of other films. I've watched a lot this week. Uncut Gems. Yeah, Adam Sandler Netflix film. Brilliant.
From the Safdie
really
brothers.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
One of the most stressful films I've ever seen. Just constant shouting, isn't it? Just constant talking over each other and
blazing
frenzied
white teeth.
Yeah,
person in that film
definitely.
has blaring white teeth.
They really do, yeah. No gems.
Great
in the
movie
teeth,
though.
But very good, very good. And then I have just finished, literally in the last hour, watching a film on Netflix called The Giant, which was a Basque film, which is sort of based on true events about set in, I think it's the 1830s, 1836, about two brothers. One of them is a giant, and sort of like not like a not a made up giant, like he's got giganticism, and it's a story based on true events about them sort of parading with him and trying to make some money because they're really struggling for money. And he sort of goes on a bit of a circus tour and sells viewings of his brother, and it's quite depressing. Some of it's quite uplifting and nice, but yeah, it's quite a tough watch, but it's very good film.
Depressing. When did you watch this?
Like an hour ago.
Saturday night.
It's Saturday afternoon.
It's becoming a Phil staple. I think I'm going to sit down and watch Schindler's List this Saturday night.
I'd watched all the fun stuff already. I watched Boss Level and Virtuosity.
Don't spoil it, Phil. We've got to get to our reviews. They might be depressing.
Yeah.
They're not.
What about you? What have you watched?
Weirdly, in a complete flip reversal, I've watched barely anything this week.
Right.
But I have what is weird actually. I've been watching more documentaries. So really popular and very zeitgeisty right now is the Framing Britney documentary, which is the New York Times doc about Britney Spears and her conservatorship. Basically, how her father has now taken over her business empire and her life, and is basically running all of those things and is in complete control of her. Really interesting. Really sad depiction of how the media and how stardom can ruin people's lives. And in particular, in that late 90s, early noughties period, you've even had people like Justin Timberlake coming out and apologizing for some things that he said about his relationship with Britney Spears after the fact, after this documentary was released. So it's been very zeitgeisty here in the US. That's on Hulu here in the US. But you can also, in the UK, you can watch that on one of the Sky channels. So if anyone's interested in watching that, it's a must-watch documentary, very, very popular at the moment. Another documentary I watched, this one on HBO, was There Is No I in Threesome, which is about a New Zealand couple who basically, in the last year before their marriage, decide to have an open relationship and invite other people into their sex lives. And it's an interesting documentary about kind of relationships and monogamy and all these different things. It was okay. It was marketed really well, but it didn't have that kind of. There's kind of a twist in there which I won't spoil, but it kind of diluted the whole thing for me. But it was good to watch. I enjoyed it mostly. And of course, WandaVision, which I won't spoil, but I finished episode 7 now. Things are starting to reveal themselves to some extent. Right. And the listeners who have watched it will know what I'm talking about. But it's still a really interesting, really exciting MCU, Marvel show, which is starting to kind of come into its own a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's only 2 episodes left, so there's a lot to resolve in that show. And obviously the impact on it going forward in the MCU and the later films that are going to come following it. So very, very, very excited about finishing that as well. So let's jump into this week's listener question. This one comes from friend of the show, Sean Chrysanthou. We love this one, didn't we? So Sean wants to know, if you could spend 24 hours on the set of any movie, what would it be and why? Phil?
Well, this is a very good question. I've got a couple of caveats I want to bring up about it, though. So I'm going to assume that with some of it, that we are spending time on the set of a film that's full of extras and actors, sort of pretending, as if you're in the film, rather than just like an empty film set that we're just wandering around. And I think you've got to go back in time for most of these as well, because most of the films now they don't make as grand sets as there's some exceptions definitely, but obviously a lot of big sets were made back in the day when that was the only way to make it look good.
Could be a location, by the way. Could just be a location.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think it's probably because I'm really interested in that kind of like behind the scenes, like set design stuff as well. But yeah, so options for me, I've got a few I'll just throw out there that I thought, again, look amazing and would be really fun to be on and sort of experience in person. Hook was one that initially came to mind because that looked brilliant. Sort of, the big pirate ships, the whole sort of that whole area that film's obviously spent in. It just looks amazing. I always thought that was amazing as a kid when I watched that. The Cantina Bar in Star Wars, I think, would be awesome to just have a drink in, which we've sort of nearly done when we went to the secret cinema.
What did we do, Phil?
A few years ago, we bartered with Han Solo and Chewbacca for passage on a ship
to Alderaan.
We did, and it was awesome. It was really good.
Yeah.
But I think to be in the actual set with the Cantina band playing in the background, telling with someone telling you they don't like you, that'd be good.
He doesn't like you.
I don't like you either. Yeah.
You could be that guy with the weird bum face. That could be you.
Oh, bum mouth.
Yeah, bum mouth.
Bum.
Is Lucas originally called him bum mouth?
I hope so.
Yeah, like bum mouth or something.
Salacious bum.
Salacious bee bum.
What else? Oh, Waterworld, because again we featured that recently in Video Store Corner, and I think that was like the biggest film set that's ever been made.
Would you be on the actual floating set, or would you be on the Hawaiian Island at the end when the guy sees the two corpses and he lived on the ocean for like 50 years of his life, and he sees two corpses and goes, "We should bury them under the ground. I believe this was their way."
Yeah, it's the first thing that came to his mind. No, I'd be on the floating set because it looked fun.
Yeah. Even though it did sink.
Yeah. Is it what?
It did sink.
It did
so
sink.
I hope you can swim.
I can, luckily. Yeah. Yeah. So that's some options from me. Oh, the other one I thought. No, I'm going to let you speak now because I might spoil.
Well, thank you. I mean, I've been trying to get a word in. I would say, I've gone two different routes with this. I'll go down the set point, as in the actual production and the set values. Titanic. Obviously, Cameron relocated and rebuilt the entire Titanic in Baja California on the 20th Century Fox backlot down there, literally just off the ocean. You can still go there, by the way. There's the ship isn't there anymore, of course, but obviously the it's like a long kind of man-made lake that they built parallel to the ocean, so you could get the ocean behind it, and when filming externally along the side of the ship. And obviously that ship was on a gimbal and obviously sank itself, so and flooded, which would be awesome. I'd love to be on the set of that. I also kind of thought about this question as not just about the set value, but also about the filmmaking process. So answer the film that I answer most of these questions with, Heat. I would be on the set for 24 hours for the scene with De Niro and Pacino in the diner when they finally meet on screen for the first time.
Right. Yeah.
That's we've been face to face, sure. Want a cup of coffee? I'd love to be on that just to witness that. Wow. And all the different takes that Michael Mann did from the different angles. I think they only did it they only went through it a few times, which would be amazing. One that it would be really interesting, really exciting to be on the set of, and mainly to maybe debunk or just to be part of the chaos, would be The Exorcist. So William Friedkin's original The Exorcist. And obviously there's supposedly the Exorcist curse around the making of the movie. Yeah. There was so much controversy because a lot of things happened on set, like really disturbing stuff on set. So there obviously there were like on set accidents. There was a mysterious fire as well that happened, and even a murder that took place by one of the cast members, one of the actors that played a nurse, actually murdered somebody during the making of this film.
Really?
So yeah, and that basically the fire that took place burnt down the entire set, apart from Reagan, the little girl who's possessed, obviously famously played by Linda Blair. The only room that didn't burn down was Reagan's room. So
spooky.
So really spooky. But I don't know, I'd like to be on the set of that. I'd like to see all that stuff go down and figure it out if it was real, and then also make a documentary about it and become a millionaire. So I hope that answered the question, Sean. If not, feel free to text us and tell us we're a pair of idiots. But I very much enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
So let's jump into news, Phil. We're not hanging around this week. We're flying through it. I'll get us started off. I've got some exciting news for you.
Go on.
What if I said to you these two names in parallel? Ready? and I know you don't know about this yet.
Okay.
The Running Man
Yes.
and Edgar Wright.
Oh, I'd be well excited.
So this is news that Edgar Wright has signed on to direct an film adaptation of the Stephen King, under his pseudonym, book, The Running Man, also made famous by Phil
Arnold.
Our pal Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
One of my favourite films, that.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I love that film.
Yeah,
Everything about that is just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous film, but I love it.
I think it's ridiculous purely for the fact that a man who is clearly Austrian in every way is called Ben Richards.
Ben Richards, the most American name he could have. Yeah.
But yeah, so Edgar Wright has signed on to direct that. I think really exciting. Obviously, Edgar Wright, for those of you not aware, directed the Three Colors Cornetto trilogy. Shaun of the Dead, the World's End, and Hot Fuzz. Also, One Night in Soho, which is coming out soon. It's currently it's basically a romantic drama, apparently, that's currently on ice, waiting for the cinemas to reopen. So that's really exciting. Not sure who's going to cast in that yet. Hopefully not Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, I would say.
Fucking hell, no, I would want that. I want that. I mean, the thing about this is that I can get excited about it because I love The Running Man, and I've got I like it. But then, in a weird coincidence, a couple of nights ago, I was flicking through channels on the TV, and the remake of Total Recall was on, and I've not seen it. I didn't watch it. I wasn't interested. I didn't think it needed to be made. And I watched about half an hour of it, and I couldn't even compare the half an hour I saw to anything in the original. It was so different. I just didn't like it. I think probably got a bit of prejudice against it, but I'm not sure. It didn't need to be made, did it? It didn't need to be done. And you can say that about a lot of things, but why not?
I mean, it was different in the remake with Colin Farrell. They didn't go to Mars. They were experiencing Mars through the recall unit, or they were experiencing.
They're in London, and
yeah.
But
it does have Kate Beckinsale in it.
Yeah, I mean, winner. And Bryan Cranston.
Love of my life, you are the. Sorry, what are we talking about?
About Bryan Cranston.
Good. Yeah, Bryan Cranston. Okay, cool. Good. So in other news as well, Disney Plus have just announced that in Europe, as of the 23rd of February, which is 3 days from the date of recording today, you'll be able to watch a vast amount of 20th Century Fox movies with mature content on Disney Plus. So if you use Disney Plus in Europe, pretty soon you're going to have access to a lot of adult content, finally, meaning that you can access Disney's obviously recently acquired vast array of 20th Century Fox films and back catalogue. In the US, they're not going to take this approach because their Hulu streaming platform has pretty much all of that content available to it. And it's seen as kind of more of the mature platform versus Disney Plus, which will stay for now as a more child-friendly platform in the US. Right. So really good news. Usually Europe is kind of behind the US with that kind of release, that kind of announcement. For example, you still don't have HBO Max, which is crazy, with all of the new releases that Warner Brothers are putting on there. So good news. You're going to be able to watch these movies, and it features Die Hard movies, Predator, Aliens, all these films. They're going to be available for you to stream right there on Disney Plus as of 23rd of February.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Philip, what have you got for us?
What have I got? So this is quite an exciting one. So Tim Burton is going to be directing a Netflix show centering on Wednesday Addams of the Addams Family. Because I think for quite a while he's been wanting to bring back the Addams Family in some form onto TV. It's a live action show. Netflix has described it as a sleuthing, supernaturally infused, mystery charting mystery charting
A
Wednesdays.
fleeting supernatural. Sorry. Sucker and succotash. A fleeting supernatural mystery.
Let me get on with the news, please. So just basically charting Wednesday's years as a student at the peculiar Nevermore Academy. So that could be interesting. I'm a fan of Tim Burton stuff, so
yeah,
and he always does well.
It's weird. It's weird how Tim Burton-esque the two Barry Sonnenfeld Addams Family movies are.
I know,
and the fact that Burton himself went on to adapt the Dark Shadows TV show into a movie. Yeah, he's actually taking that kind of reversal step, and I mean, it's been a long time since I've been excited about Tim Burton news. I don't know about you. It's been a while.
I'm trying to think what
unless
he did
it's
last.
Animation, I would say, like Frankenweenie. I loved, for example, of his more recent output.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, but then you just got to remember Batman, and it was his hands, and it's everything.
Wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you?
And everything's good again.
Yeah, that's true.
This one I think you'll like. I don't think you would have heard about this. So Adam Wingard, the filmmaker, is going to be directing a Face Off remake.
Please tell me it's with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage.
I don't think it's going to be. They haven't said. So as we know, the original one, whatever year that, 97, I think the original one was, and it was directed by John Woo. And for those that don't know, I mean, why you wouldn't have seen this, I don't know, but it's got an outlandish storyline that sees John Travolta playing an FBI agent who is on an all-consuming mission to catch terrorist Castor Troy, who is Nicolas Cage, who killed his son. And yeah, they like swap faces.
He takes his face off.
It's an insane film. I like it though.
Yeah.
Possibly seeing Nicolas Cage just in all-out batshit crazy mode for the entire film is great fun.
Well, Wingard we talked about last week, coming in from Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I was going to say, because he's coming out with that soon, and he as we mentioned last week, he'd done the Blair Witch remake and sort of more horror stuff.
The Guest.
Yeah. So who knows? It doesn't need to be done, does it? Let's be honest. I mean, it's Face Off.
John Woo knows.
John Woo knows.
Will Adam win guard, or will he lose guard?
Oh my god. And that's the news. Yeah.
So I'll jump into trailers. It was Super Bowl Sunday last weekend. Was it last weekend or the weekend before? The weekend before.
Yeah.
Which meant that, as ever, we saw a couple of great Super Bowl spots, commercials, and adverts, and obviously trailers. This, for me, the first one was The Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, the new MCU series, which is going to follow on from WandaVision. Looks fun. It does look a little bit generic, I'm not going to lie.
Right.
I think these two characters in the MCU, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they are a little dry. They need to do a lot to kind of flesh out their characters. They're going down a kind of buddy cop route with this, it looks like, a kind of Lethal Weapon type kind of shared hatred / mutual respect type approach, which could be interesting, could be fun.
Yeah.
But it's Marvel, so I'm going to lap it up. And the other is an interesting little movie from M. Night Shyamalan called Old, which is based on a graphic novel. And it's basically about a group of bathers on a beach one day who all start to appear to age at an incredibly advanced rate.
Right.
It looks really bad. I'm not going to lie. It does look bad. However, with Shyamalan, you never know if it's bad or good. For example, Lady in the Water, incredible. The Happening, Mark Wahlberg running away from the wind, with the trees blowing in the wind.
For a couple of hours.
Yeah. It's like the trees blow and he's like, let's go, we gotta go, the wind's blowing. That actually happens. It's always a fine line between genius and catastrophe, I think, with this director. I mean, I don't want to, like, he's incredibly talented and way more talented than I ever will be, but you just never know. This looks interesting. It's actually also returned to his more filmic roots. Recently he's been working a lot with Blumhouse, and he's been shooting a lot digitally. He hasn't shot anything on film since 2010's The Last Airbender. But in general, this is a film that's going to be shot on film stock. So his first kind of more filmic looking, and also the trailer announces that it will be seen in theaters. So that's yet to be seen, but it should be coming out this summer. And then finally, HBO's Zack Snyder's Justice League gets an all-new black and white trailer, showing off loads of new stuff that was cut out, that was reshot, that was, new CGI, that was added new villains, new scenes, everything. Honestly, I know there's such a viral buzz around this movie, but I'm just not into it whatsoever.
Not bothered.
No. I'm not into it at all. I'm obviously going to watch it because I have HBO Max and it's going to be on the platform. I'm just a bit done with the DC shared universe, and even many of the actors and the characters and that kind of thing. Wonder Woman for me didn't work. The latest Wonder Woman 84 didn't work. Batman versus Superman didn't work. Aquaman was really fun actually, but maybe shouldn't exist in this kind of shared universe where it becomes a little bit more serious. The only character really that I quite enjoy is the Flash, and he kind of comes across really well. He maybe came across better in the Joss Whedon rescripted version and redirected version of the Justice League, just because of I would say the more lightness in tone to Joss Whedon and his more kind of higher preference for comedy over Zack Snyder's. I don't know how it's going to come across in this, but just looks like drudgery and boredom and that kind of thing. So I don't know. It looks okay. I'll watch it, but I'm not pumped for it. Phil, cheer me up. What have you been watching? Trailers.
Well, I'm going to say 2 words to you. Mortal Kombat.
You can't say it like that. Say it properly.
Mortal Kombat! Was that better?
Oh, Mortal Kombat! Yeah.
So this is the new... because we did this on Video Store Corner a few episodes a while ago, last year, and...
the greatest / worst movie of all time.
Yeah. The 1995 classic.
Which is about to have its crown taken.
Smashed and fucking trodden on by Goro. Yeah, so this is the new one that's coming out in April. Blimey. So, I don't know where to start with it, really. I mean, it looks like...
Does it have a techno soundtrack?
No, but weirdly, at the end, when they bring up the same graphic, it has like a version of the techno thing.
What?
But like it's... Yeah, sort of, but it's like the theme's there, but it's not techno. It's like, they're just
like
alluding to it.
A piano.
Ding, 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 like on a harp or something.
Kano. With like a really soulful
your
woman.
Might.
Yeah. Test your might.
I wish. But yeah, it looks probably like a Mortal Kombat fan. It looks like everything they'd want, really. Apart from, there's no Johnny Cage in the trailer.
Oh, and fuck off.
I know. What's that about? I mean, he was clearly one of the best things about
Those are $500 sunglasses,
the best things about the 95 one. And he's not in the trailer. I don't know if that's been explained why he's not in it or if he will be later. Who knows? But it looks incredibly violent. It's like ultra gory, as you'd expect. It's sort of like what you felt like the other one should have been, goriness-wise.
Mm-hmm.
All CGI Goro, though, of course.
Okay.
And...
the one thing that worked in the original gets replaced.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And yeah, but there looks like there's a really cool like fight between Sub-Zero and Scorpio, and
Yep.
there's
Scorpio.
Scorpion, Scorpion, and
My favorite star sign.
I am a Scorpio. Did you know that?
Are you?
Yeah.
Get over here.
That's
I wonder why you're wearing all yellow and a face mask. Oh no, that's the pandemic.
That's my pandemic costume.
When you pull your face off, have you got just a flaming skull underneath?
Yeah, and a lizard's tongue of some description. Yeah. So it looks crazy, but there's some cool-ish looking scenes in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
It's a remake.
Yeah, it's not like a continuation.
It's not a continuation.
It's like a backstory thing. I think you see the beginnings of Scorpion.
Scorpion Begins, they should have called it.
Yeah. And there is the "get over here" line in that film in the trailer.
Guessing.
Okay.
Is it in that exact tone, or is it just like someone going, a new, more, should we say, 21st century PC version of someone going, "Get over here, man"?
It's not. It's between the two. He says it through a muffled mask. So that's that.
Like Kenny. Okay.
So I think we're definitely going to have to review that, aren't we? That's coming out in April.
HBO Max, baby.
HBO Max, yeah. And then the other one I saw, just again, sort of flicking through trailers, was about a film called Tides, which is the new Roland Emmerich executive produced film.
Wow.
Sorry, I got your hopes up with, didn't I? So it's not directed. It's directed by Tim Fellbaum. It's a German sci-fi thriller. So it looks pretty cool, though. It looks very, nicely stylized and everything. So it's set in like a real distant future. A female astronaut gets shipwrecked on a long, decimated Earth, and I don't know why she gets to decide, but it must decide the fate of the wasteland's remaining populace. So so it's very, you just see her on this beach and it's all foggy, and then some people come along, and everyone's ultra violent and as they are at the end of the world.
Mad Max.
Yeah, Mad Max basically. So it looks interesting though. It looks like it could be really cool. So that's called Tides.
Mad Maximilian.
And that's out in March.
Tides. Okay.
Tides. Yeah.
That does sound good.
Yeah.
You've picked up on way better trailers than me, I've got to say.
What, Mortal Kombat?
I'm going to watch that Mortal Kombat trailer.
Yeah.
And I will be reporting on it on our social media.
You should be.
Very good. All right. Anything else from you?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, let's mosey on down to the... Yeah, you can... No, you can't go. You've got to do the next review.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of which, here's our review section. So, Philippe, you sat down to watch Boss Level this week.
I did.
I also watched it. But you yourself were adamant that you wanted to review this based on the trailer that you discussed last week.
Was it only last week that I mentioned it?
Yes, it was.
Wow, we weren't really ahead of the game, really, with the trailer and
the
the film coming out.
No, it was like, by the way, if you know about this film, let's watch the trailer. Oh, actually, we can watch it now as well. But you sat down to watch Boss Level. Tell us about it. What did you think?
I did. So, I watched the trailer and was very excited by this. So this is basically, I think the best way to describe it is Groundhog Day meets Die Hard. And it's an action comedy in which Frank Grillo plays an ex-special forces guy called Roy Pulver, and he's having a very bad day. Actually, he's having exactly the same very bad day as he's been having for a long time.
How can the same shit happen to the same guy 250 times?
And this would be due to the fact that he is being forced to relive that day in a loop, which happens to be the day that a highly trained team of assassins are hunting him down in like really over the top and hilariously violent ways. And they are also having a lot of success in doing so.
Yes, they are. So,
in his exhaustive search to find out how to avoid death and why it's happening to him, we begin to see that it's something to do with scientist ex-wife Gemma, played by Naomi Watts, and her evil, controlling boss, Colonel Clive Venter, played by Mel Gibson. He's been a busy man recently, hasn't he? He's made a lot of stuff.
Been very
He's
busy.
featured a lot recently on this.
Yeah.
I think every week we've mentioned Mel Gibson for quite a while now.
No, don't bring me into this. Every week you've mentioned Mel Gibson. I don't know why.
Fucking Mel Gibson.
Welcome to the Mel Mouth Podcast with your host, Phil
Gibson.
And nobody else.
Now, let's be honest. The reliving the same day plot has been, forgive the pun, done to death. So obviously,
and over again.
And over again. So, you've got Groundhog Day leading the pack. You've also got recent stuff like Happy Death Day, Palm Springs, which you watched, and what's the other one that comes to mind? Russian Doll.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, there's another one. Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. Russian Doll series on Netflix as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, similar sort of thing. She dies every day basically and wakes up again. But this film really does have fun with it. It's so director Joe Carnahan. He's done The Grey with Liam Neeson. He did the A-Team, the newer A-Team, which was out quite a while ago now. And also Smoking Aces as well. He's obviously got a good eye for action, and I think he does a good job. Performances in it were pretty good overall. I thought that Frank Grillo was fantastic as a lead action star. He's got real comedy skills. I think this is like a perfect role for him. And they go along with the ridiculous amount of muscle he seems to have as well. And he does a great job.
You're right. You're getting a little bit.
I've got a little bit
of love
of
hearts in your eyes. I was not expecting that.
I was going to have a fan myself.
Do you want to take a minute?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Guys, I can see Phil. You don't want to know what he just did.
Where was I? Anyway, yeah. So he does a really good job showing you just how exhausting it would be to have a knife wielding assassin waking you up every morning by trying to kill you. Naomi Watts she's great generally, but I think in this she doesn't really have a chance to shine. It's not going to be that kind of role where it's like ultra serious. It's just a fun thing. And then other than that, Mel Gibson is playing evil Mel Gibson, as we've seen before in Expendables 3. It's basically exactly the same character as Expendables 3, and Machete Kills as well. But there's also some good supporting turns from Michelle Yeoh, Will Sasso, and Ken Jeong as well.
Amazing cast.
Yeah, it's really good.
Amazing.
Overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it's the perfect kind of film for you to just zone out and enjoy it without having to put too much effort into thinking about what's going on. Story wise, it's nothing. As I said, it's nothing groundbreaking at all, but it's more than enough to keep you interested. It's funny. It's really well paced. It's nice and fast action, and it seems just about the right length as well. It looks really good. There's some brilliant set pieces and action scenes, but I think one thing that slightly lets it down is some dodgy looking visual effects in some of the scenes. Don't get me wrong, like most of the effects and the violent deaths and all the gore and everything look really good. But I think some of the bigger like explosion stuff, there's one scene in particular where he like remote blows up like a car in the distance. And it looks pretty bad. It looks really
helicopter.
And the helicopter, it just looks quite amateur. It looks like, you've bought an effects pack for your visual effects software and you're pressing the explosion buttons kind of thing. Yeah. And it's just the scenes where it would have obviously cost them a lot more to do it, like to blow up like a model helicopter. I don't know. I think that's the only thing that lets it down. A couple of little bits looked a bit rough for me. But that aside, I think, if you want some ridiculous over the top action comedy fun, it's well worth a watch. Like, what did you think of it? Because you watched it as well, didn't you?
I also really liked it. And I I would agree with everything that you say. I think, it was, the performances were really, really good. The action was great. I laughed a lot. And it was at the end of a long day for me as well when I was watching this. And I honestly, it really kind of cheered me up. I think, Frank Grillo, as you say, in the lead role, and unusual to see him in a lead role.
Yeah.
He's usually a very, very good supporting, cast, unless it's, one of the Blumhouse type, Purge type movies. But I think he was really, really good in this. I liked how they didn't necessarily have to keep setting up the premise about the fact that he was repeating the same day over and over again. It was kind of clear. And they have a lot of fun with it. It's so much fun with him waking up every day and like the different moods he's in, some days when and this isn't a spoiler, but because it's so much going on in this movie, some days when he wants to get out of bed and, try and figure out what's going on, some days when he just wants to stay in bed because he's depressed or whatever, and he just gives up, and all those scenes I thought were amazing. They must have like filmed a lot like for this. They must have done a lot of filming.
Loads, they keep
going through the same. Yeah, good, really well edited in that regard. Very choppily edited, very rapid, and it never lets up. For me, I think the one thing that let it down, I would say, was the ending. Again, which I won't spoil. But I found a movie that starts so bombastically. Obviously, it's impossible to maintain, and it does go to a really nice, like heart-filled, family-centric kind of place.
Yeah,
which is good, which is nice. It gives the film some heart and some grounding, and it gives the mission, some purpose. But it did for me peter out at the end, which I was kind of, not great about. I also thought that Mel Gibson was fairly underutilized. I felt like he could have been a little bit more comedic. I felt like he was a bit too. He wasn't kind of aware of the goings on in general. I felt like he wasn't really having a lot of fun with the role. It's kind of phoning it in a little bit.
I think you're right. It's because of his character didn't know what was happening, so he's just reacting as normal, wasn't he? Whereas it sort of made it a bit more boring in that way.
I think it did.
But he had he had a really cool speech in it in the middle with Naomi. He had a really good scene with Naomi Watts. It was really good. Again, we won't spoil it.
He did. He had his Ezekiel moment from Pulp Fiction, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, in most part, I did really enjoy it. It's funny, actually, you talking about the effects and the budget. I looked into it. Basically, I was sitting there thinking, Joe Carnahan, he's like one of the big directors in Hollywood. Like, he gets all the projects. He's a writer as well. He's the studios love him. And he's also very, very good at maintaining ensemble casts like this. Basically, what happened around this movie, around the budget, is that 20th Century Fox originally put this movie into production, but eventually decided not to move forward with it because Joe Carnahan had the final say on the lead performer, and he obviously auditioned Frank Grillo, and as soon as he auditioned him, he said, "This is the lead." And 20th Century Fox disagreed with him, so they pulled the plug on the project completely, pulled the budget. So Joe had to then basically shop this around. And what he did a really smart move. He released Frank Grillo's audition tape on Twitter, and it got a viral following, which eventually pushed this movie into a independent production. And some independent producers then stumped up the cash to kind of fund it, which is why, it's clearly not filmed in New York, even though they say it's in New York at certain points and that kind of thing. And the effects aren't always that great. So it was really a case of him backing his actor, which is very hard, going up against 20th Century Fox.
That's good though.
At that time, yeah, it's good to hear. But it, what the effect on the kind of final product is, we'll never know. But really interesting in that he enjoyed working with Grillo so much that Joe Carnahan has signed Grillo on for his next movie, which is another action movie. This time, pitching him against movie mouth favorite Gerard, let's play a game of fuck off, you go first, Butler, in Cop Shop, which is where a small town police station becomes a battleground between Jerry Butler's professional hitman and Grillo's con man who's seeking refuge in a prison cell, basically with nowhere left to run, and they end up stuck in this police department together.
That sounds fun.
So, I mean, Gerard Butler and Frank Grillo.
I'm well
me too.
Yeah.
With this level of writing and hopefully comedy, So that's coming next from Joe Carnahan. And I would say if you like your movies like I would say like a kind of fun Saturday night popcorn fare. I would say this is on par with Zombieland. It's that kind of movie.
It is.
If you
It's
like
got
that
a very
kind
similar
of
feel.
zippy, fun, well edited, well directed, pacey, and doesn't hang around too long kind of action movie, then it definitely gets a recommend from me as well.
Brilliant.
So where can the folks watch this film?
So that's going to be it's on Hulu, I believe, in the US. I'm not sure about over here. It's
video on demand, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's video on demand, but I think most places it's been out because it's mainly coming out early next month, early March.
Mm-hmm.
It's been out in certain places already. I think it came out in like Australia first.
It came out in 2020, didn't it?
Yeah,
in Australia.
Like the end of, which is how we managed to watch it. But so it's just
as it's a Hulu original, that means Disney bought the rights, the rights to it. So from a distribution perspective, so who knows? You may see it on Disney Plus as part of the adult content rollout. But
yeah, maybe.
I would keep your eyes peeled on this one because it was a really, really good movie, and just find it where you can and check it out. Okay, so from the fun, heady heights of that to my review, which is Judas and the Black Messiah, a Warner Brothers production released this year. Again, another one of the Warner Brothers cinematic releases being given a US-wide home release on their HBO Max streaming platform. So you can watch it at home, or you can see it in theaters internationally or in non-major New York, LA markets in the US. So Judas and the Black Messiah is a true story. It's based on the early days of the US Black Panther movement following the assassination of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. This stars Get Out actor Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton, the charismatic and vocal chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers, and Lakeith Stanfield as Wild Bill, an undercover African-American FBI informant tasked by J. Edgar Hoover with sharing incriminating evidence into the goings-on in Fred's ever-growing powerful grip on the proletariat society in Chicago. Yes, I did write that sentence, and I didn't put any punctuation in it. This also has a really great turn from the ever-solid Jesse Plemons, who you'll know from I'm Thinking of Ending Things or Breaking Bad. Here, showing his promise as a challenger to Philip Seymour Hoffman's supporting character actor throne, and Martin Sheen, wearing some incredible prosthesis as he portrays a later years and rather racist J. Edgar Hoover. This is a really absorbing biopic with some moments of tension, incredible performances from the two leads. Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton has a really calm, gentle exterior, yet you can see he's kind of bubbling with rage and rhetoric, and he comes to life in the scenes that portray his kind of socialist and civil rights teachings to his followers. The speech is being lifted directly from Hampton's own recordings, and obviously, Daniel Kaluuya actually delivering them with incredible range and an incredible accent as well, of course, because he has a British accent. His performance is absolutely breathless. It's impassioned. It's one of the strongest performances I've seen in a long time. It was almost, to be honest, easy to write him off as a fairly passive force in a lot of the pictures that I'd seen him in until recently.
Right.
And this is going to shock many people listening to this, but I think this film elevates him to an almost peak Al Pacino level of pathos, with so much vulnerability and conviction, and he absolutely fucking commands the screen when he's on it. He's an incredible physical performance as well. Amazing. Lakeith Stanfield, also of Get Out fame, you will have known he was the guy in the kind of weird, kind of like old school hat and suit that was always around the house in Get Out. But was also, for me, it came to my attention from FX's Donald Glover starring Atlanta TV series. He plays the kind of opposite to Fred Hampton. He's the sneaky ex-con who, during an incredible one-shot opening scene, paying homage to Goodfellas era Scorsese, commits a crime while pretending to be an FBI agent. Jesse Plemons' FBI handler then manipulating him by the catch-22 of either putting him in jail or getting him to rat out on the very people in his neighborhood who are fighting for their civil rights, for their freedom. So it's a moral dilemma story, and that starts to come into focus as the movie progresses, and it becomes more of a tense psychological thriller focusing on Lakeith Stanfield's character, which I won't obviously go into any more detail in to avoid any spoilers.
Yeah. Due
to the subject matter and probably how I'm explaining this movie, it could be a really heavy film to digest. However, not unlike Movie Mouth's film of 2020, The Trial of the Chicago 7, which, by the way, also serves as a companion piece to this, because the plotline surrounding Black Panther leader Bobby Seale, which is also referenced throughout Judas and the Black Messiah, is obviously a natural kind of segue between the two films. It's never bogged down in politics, and rather it's more the human side of the struggles of this time and this community, and perhaps even now, of course. Again, parallels to George Floyd and so on, with many of the killings that are obviously portrayed at the hands of the Chicago PD in this film. And the personal impact of a life fighting for the people. I think Fred represents that, giving up his life on behalf of making people's lives better. And while Bill, Lakeith Stanfield character, who's undercover, has more of the impact of a selfish life, selling out the people that Fred should be helping. So it's a really nice kind of dichotomy between the two. What I have to say about this is how magnificent it looks. It's hard to believe that director-writer Shaka King has barely any credits to his name. Mostly they're in television. The thing I've seen of his was High Maintenance on HBO, which he directed many episodes of. Great writing, incredible performances that he manages to get from this cast. I mean, incredible performances. And some beautiful camera work. Like, I love cinematography. I love camera work. This film is gorgeous. The lighting is gorgeous. There's a scene where they pull up outside of a bar, and you see the fluorescent name of the bar mirrored in the glass as they're looking through the car window. Incredible. And there's the period setting as well of the time it's believable. I'm so sad though that I couldn't see this in a cinema, because it is a film goer's dream. This is honestly filmmaking of the highest degree. And I'm really, really excited to see what Shaka does next, because I'm not exaggerating when I say he is going to be the next big thing in filmmaking off of this, off of the fact that he has barely any filmic credits. His last film before this, I think, was 2013.
Right.
And he's only really done 2 movies in his career so far. This guy is going to be huge. Judas and the Black Messiah, 2 incredible performances, an incredible ensemble cast, and a star-making directorial turn on a massive scale. If you can see this film, as I said, don't be worried you're going to be bogged down in politics and detail. It's actually a very, in terms of the content, very light, thriller around these two characters. And you should check it out now. It's available on HBO Max in the US. It's available on video on demand, I believe, throughout the world. And you can also visit and watch this in cinemas, which is, if I could do it, I absolutely would do. So I urge our listeners to go check it out.
Sounds good.
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 Recommendation from me. So, Philip.
Yes.
Get your dancing shoes on. It's time for this.
Hello, sir. Welcome to the video shop. Can I help you?
Hi. Yes. I'm looking for something completely fucking insane on video to watch tonight.
Yes, I've got just a thing for you, sir. How about a this is a film from 1995 and features Denzel Washington and a young Russell Crowe.
Oh, American Gangster?
No, it's not. It's earlier than that. This is 1995. Virtuosity.
I'll
want to
take
rent
it, and I'll take that, and I'll take that bag of butter-kissed popcorn and a large bottle of Sprite to go.
Slash puppy to go with that.
Is
Nope.
that a euphemism?
Fuck yourself. Take the video. Get out.
Yes, it's 1995's Virtuosity. Remember? No, we didn't either.
A film you've never heard about.
Yeah, this came to my attention. I was scrolling through Hulu one night in my hotel here in Miami, Florida, and I think because I'd watched so many Denzel Washington films recently, it came up as recommended. Or was it because of my browsing history it came up as recommended? I'm not quite sure. So I vaguely remember the name, but I didn't remember anything about this. How about you?
I've never heard of this until you said, watch this trailer, we're doing this for Video Store Corner. And I watched it and I was like, what the fuck is this?
We are watching this.
I've never heard of this.
So let me jump into the plot. Virtuosity sees a former cop who's been imprisoned for murdering the psychopath who killed his family. Parker Barnes, played by the legendary Denzel Washington, is recruited to test out a new virtual reality program where the goal is to apprehend a computer-generated being called Sid 6.7, here played by Russell Crowe, who has been modelled on hundreds of deranged criminals such as Charles Manson and Adolf Hitler. When Sid manages to escape into the real world, Barnes must capture or destroy him before the soulless entity can go on a killing spree.
Wow.
So if you had read that, let's say mid-90s in a video store, and you'd seen that on the back, you saw Crowe, you saw Washington, you read that, you're renting it.
Sold.
This is what I love about video stores in those days. Because you didn't have access to the internet and you didn't really have access to trailers, all you knew was the cover and the blurb. And you would go into a video store and you would look around and you would see a film that could be incredible or a film that could be shit. For example, you basically had Blade Runner next to Weekend at Bernie's 2, Bernie in Paradise.
Both.
You know what I mean?
classics,
And
yeah.
you never... Yeah. And you would just pick up that video, you would rent it, you would go home, and then you would figure out whether or not it was good, right?
Yeah.
This is the whole point of Video Store Corner. The reason Video Store Corner exists is because of films like Virtuosity.
That's true.
So, basically we have Denzel who's trying to track down our pal Sid 6.7, his actual character name, and he's referred to Sid as Sid 6.7 throughout this film. It's never referred to as Sid. It's always Sid 6.7.
6.7.
This is not a good movie.
That's quite an understatement. Yeah.
But it is also, like 1995's Mortal Kombat, the greatest movie of all time. And that's because it has some of the most insane moments of any movie you've ever seen. I mean, I don't even know where to start. What would you say is the best thing about this movie, Phil? The best thing?
The best thing? I think the fact that this feels so 90s, like compared to any other film I've seen for ages.
Even though it's set in the 2000s, I think.
It's set in 1999.
4 years after they thought they'd have this level of technology.
Like, do you know what? Right. When the first scene, you see Parker Barnes and his mate getting off a train in a like cop uniforms, and the only way I can describe this, I initially thought I was watching Demolition Man.
Exactly.
Because it's very similar, that kind of like, it's the future,
Yeah.
and they're wearing that kind of weird costume that no one would ever wear.
What about the three seashells?
And I actually really like the opening scene. It's like, so it turns out they're in virtual reality that you don't realize straight away until you're like, wait a minute, everyone's wearing a grey suit, like everyone, and no one's acknowledging them apart from like.
It was very The Matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
That opening
exactly
scene was. I was thinking this is The Matrix.
Yeah. This is like The Matrix without the budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the special
Oh no, there was budget.
some couple of quid and a toffee crisp given to the effects director. But I think it just feels so like the soundtrack is like it's like a techno type soundtrack, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like
Oh yeah.
and yeah, I just thought, I mean, there's so much to dig into. I think
Let's start with the performances. So Denzel Washington, Parker
Dry.
Barnes,
dry.
very dry.
Very dry.
Very dry. Considering that he is supposedly a mass murderer. He is actually a mass murderer in this, by the way. So he's playing a mass murderer who killed he killed a lot of people, and he killed a mass murderer, and he also killed his family by accident.
Yeah, by accident.
And he also killed a film crew
by accident.
By accident, in parentheses, because he blew them away.
He was in a rage.
Yeah, he's very dry, and he hasn't got a lot to say, has he, in this? Which is unlike Denzel, because his roles are usually very commanding, aren't they?
Yeah.
And in this, he's more passive, I would say.
Yeah, it's just a really un-Denzel-like role, I think.
But is he just more passive because you have Russell Crowe in this, who is fucking dialed up to 11 throughout every scene that he's in? Is it just the fact that Russell Crowe has been, as Sid 6.7, the virtual reality a computer criminal now on the loose in the real world, has been lifted straight out of a 90s Batman villain role? Like, he is the most Joker or like Harvey Two-Face Dent type character.
It's like imagine Jim Carrey in Liar Liar mixed with the Joker, and then just dial it up by about 100. And that explains what Russell Crowe is like for this entire film, where he's like giggling and just making odd little noises.
He's a shit, isn't he?
He's a little shit. Yeah, he is. He's evil, obviously, because he's got the mind of 186 different serial killers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, including Adolf Hitler. At no point does he speak German, though, does he? Like,
No.
He doesn't have a little moustache either.
There's an animation in the fancy animation.
Oh, the animation in this is it's on par with Darkman, isn't it, in some places?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the one thing that... a little observation I've got about is because Sid gets brought into the real world by a weird, crazy scientist man that turns crazy for like zero reason. Like, it doesn't. It just seems odd the way he decides. Yeah, do you know what? Fuck it, I'll bring this guy into the.
He's supposed to be manipulated by his creation, isn't he?
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like Frankenstein's monster. He wants to see the full potential of his creation. But I agree, it's not given any groundwork. It's just like 1 minute he's like scared of him, and the next minute he's like desperate to bring him into the real world and
he's
stop
whispering in his ear like Vigo to what's his name?
Exactly. Dr. Janos Pohar.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 2. Call me Janos. It's Vigo.
So
Sid 6.7.
So he brings him into the world, and he gets born out of a weird latex blue egg, doesn't he?
And he looks like Crichton from Red Dwarf when he comes out of that egg, doesn't he?
It's so fucking weird. And also he's
sir, I believe that Sid 6.7 is coming out of an egg.
Sid 6.7. So yeah, he comes out of an egg, a blue egg. Why would there be an egg? There's no reason for that.
No, nanobots.
And he comes into the world naked, a la Terminator, in a little ball.
Very much so. That's very much.
And then
T-1000, I would say.
So there's
very
a scene
much T-1000.
That Russell Crowe comes out naked, and there's a scene where it's like, there's a conveniently placed glass jar which hides his man sausage, isn't there? Like, while he's talking.
I didn't pay attention to that.
Did you?
I don't know what it says about you, but I wasn't paying attention to that scene.
Yeah. So
the man sausage.
There's a scene, and he's talking, and he's like coming to the world, and there's a glass jar in the way of the privates, and you think, oh, that's good. You don't have to stare at his balls or his arse or whatever.
Yeah.
Next scene, it's very drawn out. He's then walking away from the camera and completely stark naked, no glass jar. And they force you to stare at Russell Crowe's ass for a good 30 seconds. And I'm going to use this. I never thought I'd do this, but I'm going to use the same word again. The underballs that we saw in Roadhouse.
Like underball.
I can. Your eyes are just. Why is it you can't help but look for the balls? Like when you see.
I don't know. I feel like this is from a completely different podcast, though, Phil. I feel like you realise I'm not your therapist, right?
Why do I always look for the balls?
I'm always looking at underball. I can't stop.
So if you want to see Russell Crowe's balls swimming freely next to a computer, go for it.
They should have put that on the poster. I mean, I didn't even notice that, to be honest. I was just in absolute awe of the fuckery on display here, is the only thing that I can say. It was just a very 90s, like, balls to the wall, like you say, Demolition Man without the level of kind of comedy or self-knowing. It didn't have a lot of self-awareness, did it?
No.
But what would you say was your favourite scene, and why is it the scene where Russell Crowe is walking through an LA market in a fluorescent purple suit in sync to the Bee Gees' Staying Alive?
I mean, that was fucking amazing. But I think the scene that I actually liked a bit more...
I know what you're going to say.
Do you? It's the scene before that.
I always know.
Right. It's the scene in the nightclub.
I thought you were going to say the scene after.
Oh, it's only... Yeah, well... See, that was
okay, nightclub. You go nightclub, I'll go after.
All right, okay. So the nightclub is... And I only like it so much for sort of one particular reason at the end of it. So he escapes and he goes into this nightclub, and... Because the whole fact of the thing is that he's so self-absorbed that he loves being on camera, doesn't he? He wants everyone to see him. He wants to kill people. He wants it to be seen by as many people as possible. And he's just an egomaniac. And he goes into this club, this completely 90s, like the most 90s club you can ever imagine. Where
That's like a 90s vision of a future club.
Yeah, where they've got like trance music on, and like they've got like thermal heat imaging cameras on people while they dance on the screens, and they put the cameras on him, and he's loving it. And then he just goes mental, pulls out a gun, and tells everyone to get down. And then it keeps flicking back between the club and the police trying to find him at the club, and then but then it keeps cutting back to Russell Crowe or Sid 6.7, and he's recording like people's screams so he can mix them on the sound system. He's basically creating his own like symphony on this like futuristic, weird, all surrounding keyboard, weird button 1990s space console. And he starts to play this song, which is just women screaming, men crying and screaming, mixed with
help me, help me,
bits of guitar solo. Very odd. Denzel Washington turns up behind him in one of those like big lifts, and you see him come up behind him. Pulls out his gun, shoots Sid. And you got to remember that Sid's, he's not a human, so he can be shot like quite a lot and sort of not die, and he can re-heal himself, which I thought was actually pretty cool. He can heal himself by touching glass because it's made of silicon.
By touching glass.
And he can sort of
It's
regenerate.
very T1000.
Yeah,
very
like massively,
T1000.
just glass instead of metal. So anyway, so the thing that made this scene the best thing ever is that he gets away from Denzel Washington, runs towards the lift, but as he runs towards the lift, he's laughing crazily, but then he makes like a noise. So he's run towards the lift and he rolls into the lift, right? He does like a last...
No, he actually flies over Denzel, if you remember. He flies over him. He dives off the stage and flies about 25 yards, like completely, absolutely fucking horizontal over Denzel.
Yeah, but it's the fact he rolls into the lift, but it's the fact he's laughing while he's doing it. So he's like, ha, 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 and as he rolls into the lift, he's like, ha, 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 ooh, into the lift. He just makes a ooh noise.
And he turns around and flips him the bird, doesn't he?
Yeah, while he's going down the lift. It's like, see you later.
He flips him the bird, he's shooting at him, he's just flipping him the bird.
Brilliant. What an annoying bastard.
come on, I was absolutely loving this movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
I like the follow-on scene after this, UFC. The first utterance I seem to remember of an Ultimate Fighting Championship in a movie, in an American movie. UFC really took off for me. It came to my attention late 90s.
Yeah.
And with a lot of the WWE crossover, they had a lot of wrestlers and fighters that would go between the two.
Well, just on that point, then I'm going to put a little bit of trivia in here because it sits nicely. Do you know who was in the ring at that point?
Go on.
Ken Shamrock.
Oh, and do you know what?
Yeah,
I did well there, didn't I? Because he was in the WWE and he was in the UFC.
Exactly. There you go.
Wow. Oh, yeah. You didn't really get much of a close up of him.
No, not at all. But he was in.
He sees this on the TV after dancing, after doing the Saturday Night Fever dance through the LA market.
Yeah.
He decides to change all of the TV channels to a camera pointing at his face. A camera that is interviewing the people that were in the nightclub that were like his hostages. And then this one guy is like changing the channel, keeps changing the channel back to on this one TV in like a TV store back to this UFC fight. And like Russell Crowe Sid 6.7 keeps changing the channel back to this interview, and he keeps changing it back and have a little fight. And then Russell Crowe like just breaks this guy's neck in the TV shop. Yeah, and then he's like looking at the TV and he's like, oh, there's like a fight going on. There's a UFC fight going on in LA, so I'll go there. And then he just goes there, and then he's there. Next thing you know, he's killed all the people, the TV crew, the production crew, and he's moved the one camera that appears to be filming the fight in the stadium onto a woman with, shall we say, large breasts for the entire like televisual experience. The only thing that's on the channel is this. He's just moved this camera onto this woman.
Yeah.
And no one has managed to move the camera. No one has noticed that this has happened, but it's obviously going on for about 20 minutes. This woman in the crowd just loving this.
He's killed them all. He's killed them all.
He's killed them all. But yeah, I mean, like no one's even like he's just gone in and just moved the camera back. You know, it's like so he then decides to grab this woman and basically hold her hostage. And of course, he looks directly down the camera, and no one knows how he does this, but somehow he's fully mic'd up.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
And he grabs this woman by the head, and he's like looking down this camera that he's obviously tilted towards this woman in the middle of this massive audience in a stadium. And he utters his, should we say, infamous catchphrase that just riles up Denzel Washington, which is, "Hey Parker, this one's for you." Which is apparently what the serial killer who killed his family always used to say. And you don't know this until after the fact. And it's like, it doesn't have any credence. Denzel's like, oh yeah, so basically, this guy, when he was a serial killer, he used to run around killing people. He'd like blow up buildings and he'd look down a camera and say, "Hey Parker, this one's for you." So it doesn't have any relevance.
No.
So you just see Russell Crowe grab this woman, look down the camera, somehow be fully mic'd up in the middle of an arena and go, "Hey Parker, this one's for you, buddy." And then that's it. And then the audience. So this is my favorite moment. The audience, for no apparent reason, there's a song playing during the Ultimate Fighting Championship match.
Yeah.
And it's like, and all the arena, everyone in the crowd watching this fight is dancing along to this song, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the filmmakers who made this, they've never seen a professional fight, because they were like, well, everyone's going to be watching a fight, so what are they going to be doing? They're going to be playing a song in the background and everyone's going to be dancing while these people are in this ring.
Aren't they saying the word kapow?
And they are saying in unison the word kapow.
Kapow.
Yeah. Kapow. 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 And it's going on for about 20 minutes.
It never ends.
While Russell Crowe's jumping around, throwing people off of like the balcony. He throws this one guy, then he just throws him straight off the balcony.
Yep.
Wow.
Wow,
kapow. What a scene that was. I think the best thing about this film, if you agree, Denzel's haircut at the beginning, the dreadlocks.
Do you know what? Because he has dreadlocks and a beard. I think he looks really cool. And then
he looked magnificent.
And then they fucking cut it off He cuts his beard.
Yeah.
He gets let out of prison to hunt down Sid, and they cut his hair and his beard, and in the next scene he just looks like not as good, not as cool.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I feel like they did that for the trailer because it's like this was a post The Fugitive, Harrison Ford, where at the beginning, he obviously through a lot of the movie he's got his beard, hasn't he? And he cuts it off, and it's a bit like that. I feel like it was very
but he didn't really need it for this.
He looked really cool though, didn't he?
Yeah,
With
I
the
think
dreads.
he did. Yeah.
He looked awesome. There's that scene at the beginning in the prison fight where, for no apparent reason, he's in a max security prison because he killed loads of people, and the security, the kind of prison officer, rather than putting him into solitary where he's usually supposed to go, they put him into like the mass like
General
prison general population, and there's a Nazi in there waiting to fight him with a shiv, and all the inmates are in this kind of futuristic prison, and all they have is like frosted glass that they're kind of sitting behind, and they have these tiny little windows, don't they? Little letterboxes.
Yeah.
And for some reason, this fight, the way that this fight escalates, so these two go to battle in this middle of this prison, Denzel and this white supremacist. And at the beginning of the fight, the inmates are throwing what can only be described as cotton wool balls through
balls of paper.
Little cotton wool balls through the hole. Then it upgrades to toilet paper, and there's like toilet paper streaming in. By the end of this fight, when the prison guards come in, it is raining paper from the ceiling.
It's like, how much stuff have they got in their cells? Like
sheets of A4 paper raining down, and everyone like Denzel is slipping over on it when the guards are trying to get him. I'm like, how much
it looks
paper
like,
do these fucking prisoners have?
You enter an arena for a gig, and when you leave the gig, and everyone's walking out, and the floor's covered in like crap,
ticker tape,
detritus.
Exactly. Yeah, detritus, leaflets and pamphlets, and beer cups. But it's like it's literally raining paper. In that scene, isn't it? It's just there's paper on the floor, slipping around. It was just 80. It's so 90s to the max. The way that they're just like, right, this is what's going to happen. They don't think about it, but it's going to look great.
Yeah, it's going to.
You know what I mean?
When they're fighting in slow
John
motion.
Woo, let's get 50,000 doves flying in front of the camera in slow motion when he walks in front of it.
Yeah.
What are your favorite lines of this movie? There are so many zingers in this, and they're all from Russell Crowe.
Well, I've got a Parker Barnes one.
Go on.
So it's a scene where he's chasing them, and we got to mention actually that the person that Parker Barnes is Denzel Washington is chasing Sid down, but for a lot of the film, he's with the scientist. I'm trying to remember her name.
Lynch.
Kelly Lynch.
Lynch. Yeah.
So played by who is in Roadhouse, which we talked about recently.
Yeah.
So he's with her in the car, and they're chasing Sid down, and they get to this like roadblock bit with like a gas tanker, and the fire engines are there because there's been like a crash or an explosion or something for whatever reason. So they get to this roadblock, and Denzel does this weird like handbrake turn in the car, like all stylish. And just before that, he turns to her because it's a police car and there's guns in it, and he says to her, "Reach in the back seat and hand me that crowd pleaser."
Oh yeah,
it's just like
the
what?
Shotgun. Yeah, and if you were with Denzel, you'd be like, "Crowd pleaser." Do you mean the gun
or the gun or the lunchbox or it's a blanket? I think. No, the shotgun. Yeah. What? Why? So then he tries to do that sort of cool handbrake turn sideways towards him, blast him with the shotgun.
Why was he doing that? He was firing a very high caliber shotgun right in front of an
oil tanker,
petrol truck, an oil tanker. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
You thought that was a good idea?
No, I don't think he thought about it. Did he?
Oh, mate. It's funny, by the way, that you keep calling him Parker Barnes, because for me, in my head now, the name Parker Barnes or Parker is said so much in this film. It's said more than any other word in this film. Every other word is Parker in this film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Parker, goddammit, Parker. Parker Barnes. Hey, Parker.
Parker.
This one's for you. Like, it's just Parker, isn't it? So in my head now, Denzel Washington is no longer Denzel Washington. He's Parker Barnes, and probably will be for the rest of time.
Forever.
But the whole way in which Sid 6.7 has, for no apparent reason, got it in for Parker, because I guess this mass murderer personality that he's absorbed that killed Parker Barnes' family, and Parker Barnes then killed him, has kind of taken over and has become the dominant personality. But Sid 6.7 has just got some amazing lines. Obviously, he killed Parker Barnes' family, and the one line for me that stood out from the trailer and from this movie that I laughed at again is when Russell Crowe lets Parker Barnes out of a prisoner transport truck, and for no apparent reason lets him out. I don't really know why he lets him out. No one knows, just to play with him. He likes the game. And turns to Denzel Washington as Parker Barnes and says, "Just because I'm carrying around the joy of killing your family inside me doesn't mean we can't be friends." He then also says later on in the film, "Hey buddy, how's the wife and kids? Still dead, huh?"
Yeah, he does. He's such an asshole.
He's a real asshole. There's also the scene at the end with the little girl that gets trapped, just like Sid 6.7 trapped Parker Barnes' family.
Yeah.
And he's got a pre-recorded video there just to wind up Parker Barnes while he's trying to kind of break her out. And he's just got, oh my God, he's got this line. He pops up again. It's always, "Hey Parker," like he's obsessed with Parker.
Yeah.
And Sid 6.7 pops up on this little monitor. He goes, "Hello, Parker. That can only be you. What must be perfectly clear now is that anything you can think of, I've already thought of, and I thought of it first." What must be perfectly clear now is that anything you can think of, I've already thought of, and I thought of it first. I was just sitting there. I was like, this is just fuckery, isn't it? They're just fucking around.
And
here.
if he messes up on that thing and like does something wrong, another message pops up and he goes,
Yeah.
Try again. I already thought about that.
I thought of that one. Better try again, Parker.
Faster. And he goes, faster. And the time goes on. Oh my God. I mean, leading up to that scene, what I don't understand is there's a bit towards the end. So he's chasing him through this like skyscraper type building, isn't he, up to the roof? Yep. And there's a bit where he sort of got him, but then what they don't explain is how Sid's got sort of like supernatural powers, like can leap, like you said, leap really far. And then like he could have done this so many times, like he's getting shot while he's like running and stuff. But then out of the blue, he just goes, "You know what, fuck it," and he just jumps in the air, like super jumps, and goes through a suspended ceiling, doesn't he? Like a tiled ceiling.
He does.
He just it just disappears into the ceiling. Yeah. But the next thing that's not explained is that like it's just the continuation of it is that he's chasing him. One, they don't explain how Denzel Washington gets into the ceiling. And two, how there's a fire exit in the ceiling. Like the next scene, they're out he's walking out of the...
He's on the roof.
He's on the roof. What kind of fucking architect designs a building where in a suspended ceiling, one, that'd be a lot of wasted space, wouldn't it? Two, why is there a fucking fire escape in the ceiling?
Welcome to Phil's Home Architecture Podcast. This week discussing how to build a ceiling.
Discussing the practicality of film sets in reality.
Incredible. I completely agree with you. There was a lot of shit like that where they just went, okay, well, we've decided that this can happen now and that's going to happen.
And you're going to watch
key example being opening scene where you think they're in virtual reality and Denzel and the other prisoner are kind of cop buddies going to try and take down Sid 6.7. Sid 6.7 kills the cop buddy and tells Parker that he goes, "Where's my partner?" He's chilling out. Don't worry about him. He's chilling out. And then we later see that he's in a freezer, like covered in ice, with like beers and sushi on him and stuff. But when it comes back to the real world and Parker comes out of quote unquote the Matrix. Oh, by the way, what I will say is I love how 90s this is. They keep referring to it as the virtual reality, not virtual reality.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He's in the virtual reality. When they pull Denzel out of virtual reality, his partner who died in VR goes into shock and is dead in real life.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
At the end of this movie, they trick Sid 6.7 by killing him, okay, and then reinserting him back into the virtual reality to try and find out where he's put the child, the daughter of the criminal psychologist that's buddied up with him.
Yeah.
So they trick him, and at this point, Russell Crowe throws Denzel Washington off the fucking building.
He does.
And we follow Denzel's falling body as he falls like maybe 80 stories all the way to the pavement, and his head explodes like a fucking melon.
Yeah.
how the fuck is Denzel Washington still alive when he gets unplugged from the virtual reality? It's just like, she unplugs him and he's like, oh, we found the kid, unplug him. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, everything's all right.
All right.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Your fucking partner died in the opening scene because he died in virtual reality. You're absolutely... He fell off a fucking building.
I mean, and because the crazy scientist is coming back, isn't he? And he sort of like maxes it up so that like he's getting the most stress on his brain during, like, way more than he had in the original scene where his partner died. More. It's like going up to like 1,000% stress on your brain or whatever it shows on that weird graphic that's on the screen.
Yeah. Weird 90s graphic.
Oh my god! I tell you what though, one thing I did really like about this, because at first I thought it was just really shitty special effects. It went because you didn't quite realize they were in virtual reality. There's a gunfight that happens, and he gets shot. Denzel gets shot in the arm, doesn't he? And it just looks like a really bad blood effect. But actually, it's really cool. It's like cartoon type. I like the way that people are damaged in virtual reality.
Like computer.
Yeah, you get like the
CGI.
computer CGI type injury, and it looks quite comic-y, doesn't it? It's like really bright red blood rather than the sort of like dark red. And I quite like that. And the other thing I liked about it was every time that Sid gets like annoyed or he's like in a rage, like they contort his face like a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the scene
in
the Lord of the Rings when Bilbo goes, "Give it to me!
Give it to me!"
Like, that's exactly what I saw.
Could I? Oh, my old ring. Could I just hold that old ring just for a moment?
Give it to me!
It's like, oh, Bilbo, no! Yeah, so I quite like that. So, you know, it's a simple effect, but it was actually quite cool. There was some all right bits about it. And that was it.
Well, that kind of brings us, I would say, more into the trivia part of this movie.
Yeah, I've got a little few bits of trivia. Not too much of this one. So, did you know? You probably did because I'm sure you would have looked up the cast. But the daughter of the scientist lady is played by a young Kaylee Cuoco.
Do you know what? I recognised her, but I didn't draw the two parallels.
Oh, it was her film debut.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's just been nominated for a Golden Globe for The Flight Attendant.
Oh, yes. I've seen the trailer for that. Yeah, that looks
interesting.
Interesting. So, yeah, so that was her. Here's a couple of nuggets of information. 2 potential replacements for Denzel as Parker Barnes. You've got, who would you have preferred out of these two to be in this? Michael Douglas or Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Both.
Because they were both penned to.
I'd have had them as partners. Parker and Parker. Parker and Barnes.
Parker and Barnes.
You can imagine him in that VR rig, can't you? Like freaking out. It's too close. It's too close to Total Recall.
Yeah, they
way too close to Total Recall.
Yeah, they couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Apparently, Denzel Washington took the role in this film because his son asked him to do so. I mean, do you think he hates his son for that?
What, his son John David Washington, we reviewed in Malcolm and Marie.
Yeah, do you think they talk any? Like, do you think
was it him? Do you think?
Yeah, do you think there was a period of time that they didn't talk to each other because it was such a flop?
Highly likely. Probably the fact that.
Sorry, Dad.
It's probably a fact, if you think about yourself in 1995, like I loved action movies then, like Schwarzenegger movies and all that kind of thing, and Denzel hadn't really been in a lot of those at that point.
Yeah.
So his someone's probably like, Dad, you need to do
you got to do
something
an
like
action
one of these.
film. Yeah, I want to see you.
Yeah,
you would, wouldn't you? You would.
Lethal.
Yeah. I said, here's a little weird one. When Sid 6.7 is first formed, he cuts off his own finger and licks the wound, exclaiming, a good year. Russell Crowe, who played 6.7, later appeared in A Good Year, 2006.
A Good Year, yeah, he did. Ridley Scott, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't draw that parallel, but I was thinking, I was like, Russell Crowe and wine, like there's a thing there. Do you know what I mean? Like, isn't he?
Yeah. And then this is the best, right? So I didn't know that. I was looking up bits and pieces about it. So there's a song featured in the film.
Is it Kapow?
Not that one. There is a song featured in this scene where Sid turns up outside the house of the scientist lady where her daughter is. And
I liked this song.
Okay.
It was like a rock song,
It
like
was.
a funky kind of, sounded a bit like Faith No More or like
I knew
Chili
you'd
Peppers
like
or
it,
something.
but you're going to fucking love this then, right? So that song is by the It's called The Photograph Kills, right? And
Okay.
it's by Russell Crowe and his band.
No.
His band called 30 Odd Foot of Grunts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a video on YouTube. And so like the video to this song is basically Russell Crowe on set between takes. Like he's in front of the flaming oil tanker and he's like singing the song. Like he's in all the costume. And there's like mix of like live footage of him in his band with bits of this song, and he like lights a cigarette off of the flaming car. It's amazing. Like you have to watch it. So it's called The Photograph Kills.
I found it.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch that. I really enjoyed that song.
it's a good song.
This is wicked.
It's actually a really good song. So he sings it, and it was in the film. So they featured it in the scene. Yeah. So he filmed it between. Like you could just imagine he's doing takes of this film, and then like there's another camera going, and he's like, "Oh, we can put that in the music video," and he's just like doing bits in front of all these weird. It's so odd.
Sid 6.7. I'm actually really disappointed because I wanted to look that up after the film, and I wish I'd done that now because then I would have known, and then I would have been able to have that trivia and been like, boop.
Well, there you go. I got there first. Sorry about that.
I'm going to listen to that straight after.
You'll love that song. It's a great song. Great song. But yeah, so check that out because that's a fun link to this film, but a good song.
A good song, possibly the best thing about this film.
Possibly, possibly, yeah.
The music video of in between shooting on this film is better than the film.
And that's the end. That's the end of my trivia.
And that's all I got to say about that. Just one final thing I will say about this movie.
Go
on. Is that it did have a budget of, at the time, and this is at the time, $30 million, which is a lot. Wow. $30 million. It grossed worldwide $30 million budget, $24 million.
Oh dear!
Didn't even make back its budget.
Wow!
So it was a massive flop.
You win some, you lose some. It's probably why we haven't heard of it to this day.
I mean, it must have set back Crowe's career at some point. It must have done.
Did it though? You think that?
Well, I mean,
Gladiator was 5 years after this film.
Yeah, but for me, if anything, it was him as Bud White in LA Confidential, which was a couple of years later.
Yeah,
which is a very, very different performance to this, and I feel like maybe this movie, maybe enabled him to kind of dial into, what he really wanted to do, the kind of content he really wanted to go for.
When he thought, I'm never doing that again.
Fuck this. I'm never going to be Jim Carrey / Tommy Lee Jones in Batman Forever ever again.
In a purple suit.
In a purple suit, walking around with
round sunglasses on.
Oh, but what a movie, though! Come on, what an incredible movie this is.
Anyone that wants to potentially lose an hour and 40 minutes of their life to go and watch this film, because it's it's worth it.
I mean, it's a global pandemic. What else are we going to do?
It's worth it. Go watch it.
I love it. So that was this week's Video Store Corner with Virtuosity. That was also this week's Movie Mouth podcast. Phil, it was our 20th episode.
It was, wasn't it? Episode
this
20.
Week.
Wow.
20.
Blimey.
Yeah. How are you enjoying our podcasts so far, Philip?
I love it.
What would you say your greatest moments of the pod so far?
Virtuosity.
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. Forget the rest. Oh, Roadhouse as well. I mean, no, I love. Yeah, it's been good catching up with the new releases, but I do have a very big soft spot for watching crap films, and also classic films, not just crap films, like some absolute brilliant films in Video Store Corner.
I think I've had 2 in a row now, so I think next week it's definitely going to be yours.
You wait.
So you better get your little thinking. I know you've got a cap on right now, but you better get your thinking cap on.
Cap I wear for thinking. This one's my
podcast. This was the most Video Store Corner movie of all time, though.
Well, we'll see about that. It's my turn. It's my turn, motherfucker.
Oh. Hey, Parker, this one's for you. That old classic catchphrase.
Yeah.
So please join us on the next episode of the Movie Mouth Film and TV podcast. But before then, please follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts at @MovieMouthPodcast and hit subscribe. Or, as usual, please give us a nice 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. Phil, do you have any last words?
Can you reach in the back and hand me that crowd pleaser, please?
You see, in your world, Phil, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh, but in my world, the one who gave me life doesn't have any balls.
Thanks, Sid. I'll take that on board.
Well, it's perfectly clear to me that anything you can think of, I've already thought of, and I thought of it first. So, thanks very much for joining us this week.
Bye then.
Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.
Bye, Parker.
Bye-bye, Sid.